Unauthorized use may result in legal liability. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, feeling the tension slowly locking my muscles. The entire situation with William gnawed at me, refusing to leave my thoughts. I was driving alone, behind the wheel of my own truck, because my driver had unexpectedly fallen ill with a fever, and finding a replacement within a couple of hours had been impossible. So, I had to recall my younger years and take the massive vehicle onto the highway myself. A night road, nearly deserted, with only the occasional headlights of oncoming trucks, a perfect setting for contemplation. And as always lately, my thoughts circled back to William's peculiar cargo. I had no idea what I was transporting. I had never once seen how the truck was loaded. I would arrive, park it for loading, sign the papers, wait for the keys to be returned, and that was it. My drivers had told me the same thing. William assured me that this was standard procedure to minimize the risk of damaging the equipment. Supposedly, the cargo was expensive and fragile, and the insurance company required that logistics personnel stay completely uninvolved in the loading process. And I might have even believed him if it weren't for one glaring detail. The cargo was always sealed in identical gray containers, completely unmarked. Sterile, as if they had just rolled off the assembly line. Even the delivery address is never repeated. If not for Cynthia, I would never have agreed to this deal. But she had begged me. "Ollie, it's William. We've known him our whole lives. He's always been a decent guy, and now he's in trouble. He just needs a reliable transporter. Doesn't it strike you as odd that such a reliable guy can't find a transporter?" I had asked. Cynthia had only shaken her head. "You always look for the worst in people. He trusts only you." I had relented then. And now here I was, alone, wondering just how many more times I would have to turn a blind eye to the obvious. I pulled into a dark, deserted lot near an old warehouse. The truck's engine let out a heavy clunk as I turned it off, the massive frame shuddering before coming to rest. William wasn't here yet, but that was nothing new. I was used to waiting. I took out a cigarette, squinting against the dim, flickering floodlights scattered around the perimeter. And then, knock, knock, knock. I flinched. The sound came from inside the truck. I immediately flicked the cigarette away, freezing, ears straining. Maybe I imagined it, but there it was again. A dull thud, as if someone, was hurling themselves against the metal walls of the container. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't turn a blind eye any longer. I was trembling as I circled to the back of the truck, grabbing hold of the lock. Memories of every suspicion I had dismissed, every red flag I had ignored, raced through my mind. Everything fell into place, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw inside. I flung open the doors, and my stomach twisted in sheer horror. Girls. At least 10 of them. Young, barely more than children. Some unconscious, others barely breathing, sprawled across the metal floor in filthy rags. But one was still holding on. She stared at me, eyes wide with terror. Her hands were bound, her lips split, but there was still a flicker of defiance in her gaze. She struggled to her feet, took a shaky step toward me, and whispered, "Help me." And at that moment, a brutal blow struck my back, knocking me to the ground. I landed on my knees but immediately rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the next strike. From the shadows of the warehouse, 3 hulking men emerged guards. "The hell are you doing, driver?" One of them snarled, advancing. I realized then, if I didn't act, they would shut those doors, take the girls, and that would be the end of it. But I couldn't let that happen. They had no idea who they were dealing with. For years, I had been just a businessman, the owner of a transport company. But once, I had been a weapon. The first hit, my right fist crashed into the cheekbone of the one who rushed me first. A sickening crunch, and his face exploded in blood as he crumpled to the ground, howling. The second one lunged with a knife. Big mistake. I caught his wrist, twisted hard. A sharp snap, and the blade clattered to the dirt. A swift uppercut to his jaw, and he collapsed like a sack of bricks. The third was the biggest, a brute with fists like hammers, charging straight for me. I sidestepped, twisting into a brutal roundhouse kick. His knee buckled at a grotesque angle. The sound of ligaments snapping drowned out his scream. I grabbed him by the throat, slamming him against the truck's frame, looking straight into his wide, panicked eyes. "What the hell are you moving, you bastard?" He croaked, struggling. "Coffins," I growled. "For men like you." I drove my elbow into his temple with everything I had. Blood splattered my jacket as his body spasmed, then went limp. A sob came from inside the truck. I wiped my hand clean, turned to the girl, and said, "It's over." Now I know the truth. But did I? Pain came first. Sharp. Blistering. Somewhere in my side, deep in my ribs. I tried to inhale, but my lungs seized up, like a truck had run over my chest. Something dripped nearby. Drops. I forced my eyes open. Dark concrete floor. A single flickering light above. A basement. How did I get here? Flashes of memory. Headlights. Screams. The scent of blood. I had fought. I remembered tearing the knife from the first guard's hand, driving it into another's shoulder, breaking a third man's arm, sending him crashing down, howling. They had been slow, overconfident. But me. I had been trained to kill. Adrenaline had pushed me forward. I had known there was no turning back. I had fought for those girls, for their lives, for justice. But at some point, something had pierced my neck. A burning sting, a sudden weakness. A syringe. I had tried to turn, but my legs refused to respond. My head spun, my vision blurred. Through the haze, I had seen William's face. He stood a few meters away, hands in his pockets, smirking. You disappoint me, Oliver. I had collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. The last thing I saw before darkness swallowed me whole was his smug, infuriating grin. Now I was here, bound, and in front of me sat William. He lounged in an armchair, lazily swirling the amber liquid in his glass with one hand. Dressed to perfection, an expensive suit, a watch worth tens of thousands. Relaxed, even pleased. Awake, old friend. His voice was soft, almost affectionate, but I knew what lay beneath the surface. I swallowed hard. Where are the girls? I rasped. William smirked, took a sip, and set the glass down on the table. Exactly where they need to be. Don't worry. I clenched my teeth. You bastard. Hey, take it easy, Oliver. He raised his hands in mock defense. I'm just running a business. And you, my friend, you stuck your nose where it didn't belong. He stood up, adjusted his cuffs, and took a few leisurely steps toward me. You were a good transporter. You know that? Reliable. Efficient. But the problem is you think too much. I remained silent, staring straight into his eyes. You know what your mistake was? He continued. You thought you were the protagonist, that you could change something. But you're nothing. Just a driver. A cog in the machine. And when a cog starts grinding, it gets thrown away. He leaned in closer, until the cloying scent of expensive cologne and whiskey filled my nostrils. And now here you are. Bound. Pathetic. I didn't look away. You're filth. William laughed. Filth? Huh. No, Oliver. I'm a realist. I see the world as it is. You're just a fool. Living in illusions. He stepped back and pulled out his phone. But you know what's really funny? Even your wife figured it out. Long before you did. I froze. Oh, now I have your attention, don't I? William grinned, unlocking his screen. Watch this, old friend. He turned the phone toward me. A video. Cynthia, naked, sprawled on our bed beneath him. I forgot how to breathe. Her hands clawed at his back. She arched, moaned. And him, he looked straight into the camera, smirking, moving slowly, savoring it. Something inside me snapped. William leaned in, savoring my reaction. Do you know how long this has been going on? He whispered. A year. She didn't even resist. She came to me willingly. Your bed, your wife. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. I'm going to kill you. William chuckled. Try. He kicked me in the chest, knocking me sideways. I barely stopped myself from choking on my own fury. Get used to it, Oliver. You're not in control anymore. And that's when I understood this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. When William spat in my face, I didn't flinch. His saliva dripped down my cheek, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing fear in my eyes. He smirked, wiping his shoe against my leg like I was trash. His gaze radiated contempt, but I knew the truth. His disdain was for himself. Only a man rotting from the inside out could do something like this. Take out the trash, he told the guards, reclining lazily in his chair. And break him. I want him crawling on his knees, begging me for mercy. Two hulking men in black suits grabbed me under the arms and dragged me away. I had no strength left to resist. My hands were still tied, my body aching from hours of confinement. They hauled me into a dimly lit room with concrete walls. The air reeked of sweat, blood, and fear, a smell I knew all too well. Shut the door, one of them said. The lock clicked. The first blow landed in my stomach. My body folded in half, air whooshing from my lungs. Then came a punch to the face. Searing pain exploded in my skull, sending me sprawling to the floor. I wheezed, struggling for breath, only to be met with a brutal kick to the ribs. A sickening crunch. One, maybe two broken. Hold him up, the other ordered. They yanked me onto my knees. One of them gripped my hair, forcing me to look up. The other slid brass knuckles onto his fingers, running them lazily across my face. Break him, huh? He drawled, savoring the words. Well then, let's begin. A punch. Pain lanced through my jaw, blood filled my mouth. Another. My head snapped to the side, darkness creeping into my vision. Then the real beating began. Blows rained down on my ribs, my shoulders, my gut. They were professionals, not killing me, just dismantling me piece by piece. I recognized the technique. I laughed. A ragged, broken sound, but I couldn't help it. What's so funny, scum? One of them snarled, grabbing my collar. I spat blood into his face. Your boss. Your pathetic existence. I gave a weak smile. I can smell your fear. He roared and drove his fist into my temple. The world exploded into fire, and I plunged into darkness. When I came to, the room swam in my vision. Every inch of me throbbed. I lay on the cold floor, in a pool of my own blood. But I was alive. Their mistake. So, do you understand your place now? One of the guards taunted. He crouched beside me, patting my cheek. They say if you beat a dog long enough, it learns obedience. You wouldn't want us to continue, would you? I slowly turned my head, grinning through the agony. Are you sure you understand who the real dog is here? His brow furrowed, but he had no time to reply. Because I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. They wanted to break me. But William had forgotten one simple truth. I was built to survive. They kept beating me for a long time. So long that the pain faded into the background, a dull noise that my mind eventually stopped registering. They thought I had broken, and when they realized their efforts were in vain, they simply tossed me out like garbage. Getting home was an ordeal. Every step sent shockwaves of pain through my body. My vision swam, but I refused to collapse. I was beaten, humiliated, but not broken. When I finally unlocked the door to my apartment, hoping for even a moment of respite, I was met with silence. Samantha should have been at work, but my daughter, she was supposed to be home. But she wasn't. Only a note lay waiting on the table. Your daughter is with us. I crushed the paper in my fist, feeling the ice-cold rage rise in my chest. William. It was him. With trembling hands, I dialed his number. He answered almost immediately. Oh, Oliver, his voice was smug, lazy. Good to hear from you. I thought you'd be resting after our little chat. Where is she? My voice was low, controlled. Who? He mused with feigned confusion. Ah, your sweet little girl? Don't worry, she's perfectly fine. For now. If you laid so much as a finger on her. Shoo. Let's not get emotional, he cut me off smoothly. I simply needed some insurance. You understand, don't you? I'm a careful man. I need to be sure you'll behave. I gritted my teeth. What do you want? Oh, the same thing as before, William chuckled. You'll do exactly as I say. No heroics, no foolishness. You see, after tonight, I realized you're more troublesome than I anticipated. So, I needed leverage. And what better guarantee than your precious daughter? Let her go, and I'll do whatever you want. Oh, if only I could trust you, he sighed theatrically. But you, my friend, are stubborn. So, she stays with me for now. You wouldn't want anything unfortunate to happen to her, would you? I closed my eyes, forcing myself to keep the fury in check. I'll do whatever you ask. But if you so much as harm her, William, I will destroy you. He laughed. Oliver, you amuse me. Get some rest. I still have plans for you. The line went dead. I stood there, gripping the phone, breathing hard. He had crossed the line, and now he was going to regret it. I sat on the edge of the bed, wiping blood from my skin with a soaked rag. The water in the basin had long turned crimson. Every cut burned. Every breath sent dull agony through my shattered ribs. But none of it compared to the storm inside me. The front door lock clicked. I slowly lifted my head. Samantha walked in, shaking the snow off her coat. She saw me and froze. Her eyes widened, her face drained of color. Oliver. My God, what happened to you? I rose to my feet, muscles screaming in protest. Who did this? Did you go to a hospital? Why are you covered in blood? She took a step toward me, but I raised my hand sharply. Don't come any closer. My voice was cold as a blade. Oliver, fear flickered in her eyes. What's going on? Are you really asking? I let out a bitter chuckle. What? Did your lover forget to tell you? She paled even more. Oh, that's right. William, wasn't it? I said, stepping toward her. He must have forgotten to mention that his men beat the life out of me. She instinctively took a step back. You look surprised. But how about this news? Our daughter, she's with him now. Samantha shook her head violently. No, that's a mistake. He wouldn't. Mistakes, Samantha, are what you've been making, I growled. He kidnapped our daughter. Because of you. She clutched her hands to her chest as if that could protect her. Oliver, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know I snapped. You didn't know? You fucked him in our bed. Her face twisted in shock, and before I could stop myself, my hand flew up and cracked across her cheek. She gasped, stumbling backward, clutching her face. You betrayed me. You betrayed our family. I never meant to, her voice trembled. You never meant to? I stepped closer, backing her into a corner. You never meant to, but you still spread your legs for the bastard who broke my bones and stole our daughter? Samantha's breath hitched, tears welling in her eyes. Oliver, I never thought it would go this far. You didn't think. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You just wanted a bit of fun, didn't you? A little excitement. And now our daughter is in the hands of a psychopath, being used as bait to control me. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. I grabbed her by the chin, forcing her to look at me. You will regret this, Samantha. Every second you spent with him. I will get our daughter back. And then, I will go after William. I let her go, and she collapsed to her knees, burying her face in her hands. Oliver. But I didn't care about her tears. She had already made her choice. I stepped out of the house, slamming the door shut behind me. I could no longer stand being in that place, suffocated by lies and betrayal. Every wall, every object, was a painful reminder of what Samantha had done. But she didn't matter right now. There was only one thing that did, Rachel. I inhaled the freezing air slowly, trying to suppress the sharp pain in my ribs. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, entered a long-forgotten number, and pressed call. 3 rings. Speak. The voice on the other end was low, calm, but wary. It's Oliver. A short silence. Jesus Christ. I heard the heavy exhale on the other end of the line. You disappeared 5 years ago. What the hell made you come back from the dead? I need help, Danny. I figured. You wouldn't be calling otherwise. William took my daughter. Who the hell is William? A piece of shit who thinks he can control me. I want him to know what it feels like to lose everything. Danny fell silent. You know what you're asking for, don't you? You want to go back to the old ways. I don't want to. I have to. All right. Where are you? In an hour, at the hangars on 14th. We'll be there. The line went dead. An abandoned hangar on the outskirts of the city. Once, this was where we prepared for operations no one was supposed to know about. Now, it was nothing more than a shadow of the past. But some things never die. I pulled up in a stolen car, stopping just outside the rusted gates before stepping out. The night had thickened. The air carried the scent of metal and cold. You look like shit. The voice came from my right. I turned my head. Danny stood there, arms crossed, with 2 others beside him. Tom and Vic feel about the same. I rasped. Danny stepped closer, scanning me from head to toe. Talk. William. Rich bastard who owns half the city. He has my wife and daughter. One he can keep as a souvenir. The other, I'm taking back. What does he want? He's holding her hostage to force me to work for him. Thinks he's broken me. Tom scoffed. He busted up your face and thinks that's enough? What an idiot. Yeah, I muttered. And that's exactly what we're going to use against him. Vic took a step forward. What's the plan? I looked at them and exhaled slowly. I can't do this alone. I need people. I need resources. And I need a plan. Danny smirked. Old man, we've got plenty of all 3. Welcome back. We knew William had a stranglehold on the city. But every king has rats. And we needed one that could chew us away inside his empire. Danny pulled out a list of names. We started with the weakest link, the man who always took the money and talked too much. His name was Luis Montego, William's former accountant, who once thought he could steal from his boss, but didn't run fast enough. Now, he worked for whoever paid the most, selling information to the cops, rival gangs, and anyone willing to throw him a decent paycheck. Finding him was easy. A filthy motel on the edge of town, room 217. Luis wasn't careful. He thought he was invisible. We didn't knock. No, Guys, let's not do anything crazy, he squealed when I drove my fist into his gut and shoved him into a chair. You need to tell us something, Luis, Danny said as he sat across from him, cracking his knuckles. And if you decide to play dumb, Tom picked up a pair of pliers, flicking them open and shut under the dim light. Luis swallowed hard. Come on, guys, let's be reasonable. I'm just a businessman. I don't know anything. I grabbed a fistful of his greasy hair and yanked his head back, forcing him to look me in the eyes. Luis, if you were just a businessman, we wouldn't be sitting here. You leaked intel on William's main operation. His drugs. The girls he keeps locked up in his basements. Now, you're going to tell us where. Luis shook his head desperately. No. No, if I talk, he'll kill me. I glanced at Tom. Start. Luis's first finger snapped under the pliers. His scream echoed through the room. Oh God. Okay. He gasped, struggling to catch his breath. Talk. The warehouse by the docks. The old shipping yards. On the surface, it's just a cargo depot, but inside, he choked on his words, tears spilling down his face. Inside, there's a network of tunnels. That's where they keep the girls, where they move the shipments. It's the heart of his operation. He's always there. It's his fortress. I looked at Danny. We need that warehouse. Luis squirmed in his chair. No, guys. You don't get it. He's got armed men, security systems, traps. It's a goddamn labyrinth. I leaned in, my fingers tightening around his throat. Luis, if you're lying, I'll come back. And next time, it won't be your fingers. He frantically shook his head. I swear. I told you everything. I released my grip. Then pray you weren't lying. We left Luis in his room, bound, with shattered fingers. He didn't matter anymore. Now, our target was clear. We arrived at the old docks. The place was the perfect hideout. Massive warehouses, rusting containers, cranes long out of service. The hangars stood deep within the complex, surrounded by a barbed wire fence. Cameras lined the roof. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Danny exhaled through his teeth. Hell of a fortress. William loves luxury, but he loves security even more, Tom added. I stared at the building, and a single thought burned in my chest. I will take Rachel back, and I will burn this place to the ground. We spent 2 hours scouting the area, working methodically, using optics and a drone equipped with thermal imaging. Outside, at least 10 men. The patrols moved in pairs, carrying rifles. Snipers on the roof. A turret guarding the main gate. Inside, cameras and motion sensors. William had turned this place into a fortress. But every fortress has a weak spot. We found one. An old drainage system beneath the hangar. Once used for storm runoff, the tunnels led directly beneath the warehouse. According to the blueprints, the tunnel exited into the basement, the same place where the girls were being held. William didn't use it. Too filthy, too inconvenient. That meant no guards. Once we had all the intel, we left. Our base was simple, functional. An old bunker beneath an abandoned factory. A handful of rooms, a stockpile of weapons, a computer center, and what we generously called rest area. We sat around the table, the schematic of the hangar spread out before us. We can't go in loud, Danny started. They'll cut us down the second we breach. Even if we had more men, Tom added, we wouldn't make it past the gate. I studied the blueprint and pointed to the tunnel. We go in from below. Get the girls out first. Then we trigger the alarm. The guards will rush inside, and that's when our main team hits them from behind. Vic nodded. What about William? I smirked. He's not going anywhere. Danny slapped the table. Then we need weapons. A lot of weapons. We moved into the next room, where crates of rifles, shotguns, and explosives were stacked against the walls. Take the best gear we've got, Tom said. I picked up a handgun, running my finger slowly along the barrel. We're going to war. The night was on our side. Darkness concealed us, the freezing air slowing time itself. We moved without a word. Each of us knew what had to be done. I took the lead, rifle at the ready. Behind me, Danny, Tom, and Vic checked their gear. We were dressed in black tactical suits, suppressors on our weapons, knives strapped to our thighs. We wouldn't make noise until it was necessary. We reached the fence and dropped into the shadows behind a container. I raised my hand, signaling a halt. A sniper on the roof swept his rifle lazily from side to side. The guards at the gate were smoking, relaxed. They weren't expecting company. Drones up, Danny whispered. A small, silent quadcopter lifted into the air, feeding us a live view from above. The screen on his tablet displayed the layout. 8 men outside, 2 on the roof, for inside. Cameras. Motion detectors. I glanced at the rusted drainage hatch in the ground. Our entry point. Tom, Vic, clear the perimeter. Quietly, Danny and I go through the tunnel. Nods. We moved. Tom vanished into the dark, Vic close behind. A minute later, the first guard dropped without a sound. 10 seconds after that, the second gurgled softly as a knife slid under his ribs. Clear, Vic whispered over comms. Danny and I crept toward the hatch. The rusted metal gave way with a groan. I slipped inside first. The stench of mold and rot hit instantly. Stagnant water pooled at our feet, droplets echoing off the damp walls. But it was a small price to pay. We moved quickly, hunched over, flashlights dimmed. Up ahead, a metal grate. Locked. I pulled out the bolt cutters. A few sharp snaps, and the lock broke. Time to go all in, Danny murmured. We entered William's lair. The basement reeked. Sweat, blood, and fear thickened the air, clinging to the walls. My flashlight illuminated a narrow corridor lined with massive iron doors. A muffled whimper drifted from behind one of them. I signaled to Danny. He nodded, slinging his shotgun from his back and aiming at the first lock. A suppressed shot. The door swung open. Inside, curled up on a filthy mattress, was a girl, barely alive. Skin pale, dark circles under her eyes. When the light hit her face, she flinched as if it burned. Hey, I crouched beside her, keeping my voice gentle. It's okay. We're here to help. She didn't respond, just let out a shaky breath, staring at us with eyes that had long stopped believing in salvation. Shit, Danny muttered, scanning the room. I reached for her, but she recoiled, expecting a blow. You're safe now, I said firmly. You're free. Something flickered in her gaze, understanding, doubt, hope. Slowly, I helped her to her feet. She wobbled, but I steadied her. Another one of William's victims, Danny said darkly. Another reason to kill him, I replied. We moved fast, unlocking the remaining doors. 5 in total. Different girls, but the same hollow stairs. Some sobbed, some walked in silence, some couldn't walk at all. We carried them. But Rachel wasn't among them. My fists clenched. Where is she? I turned to one of the girls. Who? Her voice trembled. Rachel. 16 years old. Was she here? She shook her head. I don't know, but there was another girl. They took her. To the boss. He doesn't keep the important ones down here. They're upstairs. I exchanged a look with Danny. You hear that? He nodded. I think it's time to tear this place apart. We led the girls through the tunnel, passing them off to our waiting men. Vic and Tom were already at the exit. Get them to the cars, I ordered. They're out of this fight. Vic nodded, helping one of the girls up. I turned to Danny. Rachel is upstairs. A predatory grin spread across his face. Then let's go show William that he made the biggest mistake of his life. I pressed myself against the wall, taking a slow, steady breath. The time had come. Let's begin. I nodded to Danny. He pulled out a small device, pressed a button. The piercing wail of the alarm shattered the silence. Red emergency lights flared across the corridors, casting flickering shadows against the old pipes and rusted walls. Cameras blinked wildly, relaying the chaos to the security room. What the hell? A voice snapped from around the corner. Danny and I moved forward. The first guard stormed out, rifle raised, but he didn't even get the chance to aim. Danny struck fast, driving his knife deep into the man's throat. Blood gushed, soaking his chest as he choked, clutching at the gaping wound before collapsing. The second reached for his radio, but I was already there. A sharp elbow to his temple sent his head slamming against a steel beam with a sickening crack. Move. Faster, I hissed. The hallway exploded with gunfire, automatic rounds lighting up the dark passage. We dove behind a column as bullets chewed into the concrete around us. Tom and Vic flanked from the opposite side, their suppressed shots precise and deadly. One guard jolted, clutching his chest before crumpling to the ground. Another collapsed, gurgling as blood pooled beneath him. We pushed for the stairs. Danny shouted. We sprinted upward. They were waiting. One of William's men burst from the doorway, a machete glinting in his grip. I ducked his wild swing, feeling the blade slice through empty air. Spinning behind him, I plunged my knife into his side and twisted. Warm blood splattered my face. He screamed, but I had already yanked the blade free and slashed across his throat. More were inside. Grenade! Tom yelled, tossing the explosive. A deafening blast rocked the room. 3 bodies flung apart, their remains splattered across the walls. We entered. It was pure chaos. Wounded guards groaned, some crawling away, others clutching at their shredded limbs. One, gripping a gaping wound on his leg, fumbled desperately for a pistol. I stepped forward and shot him in the head. "Don't waste bullets," Danny muttered, stomping another man's skull into the floor. We pressed forward toward the main hall. I knew William would be there. And so would Rachel. The door flew open. 6 armed men stood before us. I grinned. Time for Act 2? They stood tense, fingers twitching on their triggers. There was no fear in their eyes, only hatred and a burning desire to kill. I didn't give them the chance. My first shot blew apart a man's face, his skull bursting against the wall in a mist of blood and bone. The second barely had time to blink before my knife drove up through his jaw and into his brain. Danny broke right, firing twice. 2 more dropped, gurgling on their own blood. Tom grabbed one by the wrist, disarmed him, and buried his blade deep into his liver, twisting hard. The man spasmed, eyes wide with agony, before collapsing. One left. He threw down his gun, hands raised. Don't shoot." I stepped closer, aiming at his forehead. "Were you there when they took my daughter?" "No, I swear. I pulled the trigger. Then you were." We stormed the main hall, and I saw him. William lounged in his chair, legs stretched out, as if this was nothing more than an amusing performance for his entertainment. A glass of wine in one hand, my daughter in the other. Rachel. She stood before him, eyes wide with terror, hands bound, lips trembling, but she wasn't crying. She knew I would come. "So, you made it, Oliver," William mused, sipping his wine. "I knew you wouldn't leave your daughter behind. You're the hero, after all, aren't you? Let her go." My voice was steady, laced with steel. "You killed my men, wrecked my business, and now you think you can just take the girl and walk away?" I took a step forward. "I can let you live, William. Give me my daughter, and I walk out that door." He laughed. "You actually believe you're getting out of here?" He raised his phone, turning the screen toward me. "They're already coming." The security feed displayed a convoy of vehicles approaching the warehouse. At least 30 men, his entire damn army. "You pushed too far, Oliver," he said smugly. "You're just a cornered animal now." I slowly nodded. "William, do you know the difference between you and me?" His smirk widened. "That you're about to die?" I smirked back. "No, that I planned for this." I turned and bolted. "What the fuck? Where are you going?" William bellowed. But I was already running. I remembered where I had seen it. The mounted gun on the roof. If an army was coming for me, I would greet them properly. I sprinted up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. My blood pounded in my ears, breath ragged, but I didn't feel the pain. Only rage. At the top, it stood waiting. An old but deadly .50 caliber turret. A beast capable of ripping a man in half with a single shot. I settled in behind it, checking the ammo. More than enough. Below, the convoy was arriving. Black SUVs screeched to a stop outside, doors bursting open as William's men poured out. 30, maybe 40, all armed to the teeth. They moved carefully, weapons ready, scanning the area for an ambush. But they didn't look up. I let them cluster together near the entrance. Let them think they had control. Then, I pulled the trigger. The turret roared to life, shredding the night with its furious thunder. The ground below erupted in blood and flesh. The first burst tore through the front ranks, heads vanishing in sprays of red, bodies collapsing like broken puppets. I shifted my aim left. Bullets tore through bodies, shredding them apart. One of the bastards tried to take cover behind a car door, but the .50 caliber round obliterated both the door and him, spraying his insides across the pavement. Another thug ran toward the containers, desperate to escape. I caught him mid-stride with a burst of fire. A round tore his leg clean off, sending him crashing down, clutching the bloody stump, choking on his own screams. One of them reached for a rocket launcher. Not this time. I squeezed the trigger. The burst shattered his spine, a bullet punching straight through his gut and tearing out a smoldering chunk of flesh. Panic consumed them. Some threw their weapons down. Others ran for cover. But I gave them no chances. 1, 2, 3, 10. All of them fell, ripped apart, torn to shreds. The asphalt was a crimson swamp. Chunks of flesh clung to the walls. The stench of blood thickened in the air. "You wanted an army, William?" I whispered, sweeping the barrel across the carnage. "Well, here's your damn army." The last survivor, soaked in the blood of his comrades, dropped to his knees, trembling. I aimed at his head. He shut his eyes. Ta-ta-ta-ta. He was gone. I exhaled, releasing my grip on the turret. It was over. Now, only William remained. I made my way down, reeking of smoke, gunpowder, and death. The corridors reeked of it. 2 splattered walls, bodies sprawled lifelessly across the floor, the air still vibrating with the echoes of slaughter. When I entered the main hall, silence greeted me. Rachel was free. Tom had already cut the ropes from her wrists. She stood beside Danny, still trembling but standing tall. When she saw me, something flickered in her eyes, relief, pain, hope. I gave her a nod. Then, I turned to him. William knelt in the center of the room. No expensive suit. No smug grin. No power. Only fear. Blood trickled from a wound on his forehead, tracing down his cheek. His hands trembled. He looked small. "You're too late, Oliver," he rasped. "All your bravado means nothing now." I stepped closer, pistol in hand. "You think your words still mean anything?" He forced a smirk, but panic swam in his eyes. "You won't kill me. That would be too easy. You want me to suffer, don't you?" I leaned in. "You have no idea." I seized him by the throat and slammed him to the floor. "How many girls did you sell, William?" My voice was low, venomous. "How many mothers wept for their daughters?" He gasped, clawing for breath. "It's just business," I hit him. Once. Twice. He had nothing left to spit but blood. Rachel was watching. "Dad," she whispered. I froze. My fingers still gripped his throat, but something inside me shifted, the fire cooling just enough for clarity to seep in. I looked at her. Her eyes weren't pleading. She wasn't afraid. She was simply watching. And I understood. I wouldn't let William die easily. I let go, allowing him to choke and cough. "You'll die, William," I said calmly. "But not yet." I stood, looking at my men. "Tie him up. Let's make sure he learns what real fear is." Danny grinned. "Oh, this is going to be fun." I locked the door behind Rachel, bolting every latch. For a moment, I stood there, listening to her breathing on the other side of the wall. She was safe. Finally, I shut my eyes, willing the storm in my mind to settle, but the rage only thickened, growing heavier, turning into a black void with a single purpose. "William." I turned and walked back, retracing my steps down a corridor littered with his dead men. The air was saturated with the scent of blood, gunpowder, and fear, soaking into the walls, into my skin. I stepped over a guard who lay groaning, clutching his shattered knees, and entered the darkened room where William was waiting, tied to a chair. His head hung forward, his shirt torn, one shoulder dislocated at an ugly angle. He stirred weakly, but the ropes were too tight, his hands turning a sickly shade of blue from the lack of circulation. I shut the door behind me and paced the room slowly, never taking my eyes off him. William lifted his head. His lip was split, one eye swollen shut, but still he tried to smile. You're not a killer, Oliver," he rasped, spitting blood onto the floor. "You've always been righteous, noble." I studied him, tilting my head slightly, as if considering his words. Then, without warning, I struck him across the face. His chair wobbled, but didn't fall. "You know, William, you're right," I murmured, flexing my fingers, rolling my knuckles. For a long time, I believed I could be better than this world, that I could live honestly, that rules mattered. I leaned in, close enough for him to feel my breath, heavy and burning. "But you taught me differently." I picked up the knife from the table, running the blade along his cheek, leaving behind a thin crimson line. "You have no idea how long I've dreamed of this moment. How many times I've seen you in my nightmares. How many times I wanted to tear you apart with my bare hands." I gripped his hand, pressing the knife to his pinky finger. "Do you know what's truly terrifying about torture, William?" I applied slight pressure, feeling the tip of the blade sink into his flesh. "It's not the pain. It's knowing it won't stop until I decide it will." I drove the knife down in one swift motion. His severed finger dropped to the floor. William howled, but I silenced him quickly, shoving a gag into his mouth before his screams could rattle the walls. "You loved playing with lives, didn't you? Deciding who gets to live, who dies. Treating people like merchandise. Did you really think I'd just shoot you?" I buried the knife in his thigh and twisted. His body arched, racked with agony. "No, my friend. You're going to die slowly." I stabbed him again, and again, until his eyes started to glaze over from the pain and shock. I stood over him, watching his wretched body convulse, watching the blood seep through his torn shirt, pooling in thick drops on the floor. There was no smirk now, no defiance, only the realization that this was the end. I crouched beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder, almost as if we were old friends, as if I had known him all my life. You know, William, you were right. I really was just a driver, a businessman, just an ordinary guy. I lifted the knife, drawing the edge gently along his cheek, like a surgeon making the first incision. But you made a mistake. I yanked his head back by the hair and got to work, slowly, savoring every cut, every fresh line carved into his skin. He didn't scream anymore. His voice was long gone. Only ragged, choking gasps remained. I wasn't in a hurry. I was taking him apart, piece by piece, just as he had dismantled those girls, just as he had destroyed my family, my life, my honor. And I was enjoying it. By the time there was barely anything left of him that could be called a man, I looked into his dimming eyes and whispered, "Now, you're just cargo." Then, I picked up a piece of rebar, raised it, and without hesitation, drove it straight through his throat. Silence. I took a deep breath. Justice was done. I went back for Rachel. She didn't ask what had happened to William. She already knew. I took her hand, and we simply walked away, without looking back. But there was still one last loose end. Cynthia, my loving wife, who had sworn William was a trustworthy man, who had betrayed me in my own bed. I wasn't going to kill her. That would have been too easy. But I had something special planned. When we returned to the city, I drained every last dollar from her accounts, leaving her with nothing but loose change. But that was just the beginning. I bought 2 one-way tickets to a small town, somewhere no one knew me, where I could start over. Before leaving, I left Cynthia a parting gift. I uploaded every intimate video she had ever made with William. And I didn't stop there. I sent the links to her colleagues, her boss, her friends, her parents. Within days, she lost her job. And as a final touch, I transferred the house deed to Rachel. The very house where she had slept with William no longer belonged to her. When she stormed into my place, screaming, throwing whatever she could grab, demanding explanations, I just laughed. "Oh, you always loved adventure, didn't you, darling? Well, now you're free. Live however you want. Just without me." I walked out without looking back. A new life. Rachel and I left for good. I sold my business and left my past behind. No more late-night calls from partners. No more reports to go through. No more constant tension. Now, I was simply living. The new city greeted us with cool air and quiet streets. No hustle, no loud promises of success, no one who knew who I used to be. I chose it deliberately so that Rachel and I could start over. I got a job at an auto repair shop. Grease under my nails, the smell of oil, the hum of working engines. This was my new reality. The job didn't require difficult decisions, just precise movements and patience. That was exactly what I needed. Simple days. Peace. I had no regrets. And then Julia appeared. She walked into the shop with a light scent of perfume and eyes that held something warm. Something real. Too real to be an illusion. "Good afternoon," she said, brushing a strand of chestnut hair off her shoulder. There's a weird knocking sound in my engine. I took the keys from her and glanced at her briefly. Young, confident, but not arrogant. She didn't look away. "I'll check it out," I said. After inspecting the car, I explained that the belt needed replacing and a few things needed adjusting. She nodded, not fully understanding but trusting. "All right, please fix it," she said with a smile. "When can I pick it up?" "Around noon tomorrow." She left, and I stood there, realizing something had shifted inside me. Then there were more meetings. She would stop by the shop, sometimes without any real reason. We talked, we laughed. Just casual conversations, but they felt light, real, not just small talk. One day, I introduced her to Rachel. I was afraid. Afraid that my daughter wouldn't accept her, that she would push her away, that she would see her as a threat to our little world, the one we were carefully rebuilding. But it turned out differently. Julia sat beside Rachel, and as soon as she learned that my daughter didn't know how to braid her hair, she gently took the strands in her hands. "Look, it's easy," she said, carefully separating them. Rachel laughed, and I watched them, feeling something heavy inside me finally melt away. I had found a family again. No more secrets. No more lies. Only a new life. And no one could take it away from us anymore.